It's been a big week for Tales of Arcadia fans. First, we got the third chapter in the Tales of Arcadia trilogy with Wizards. It's now streaming on Netflix. If you haven't seen it yet, go on over to my blog. I've got 6 reasons why you should watch it. I'll put the link down below. But I've also got some exclusive content to share with you guys. I was able to interview Marc Guggenheim, the executive producer, and Colin O'Donoghue, who plays the voice of Douxie. You may also know him as Captain Hook from Once Upon a Time. I sat down with them this week as part of a forum and a round table with other bloggers. I put the shortened version of this interview up on my YouTube channel this week, but I wanted to give you guys access to the full interview so you can see all of the questions that everyone asked and really provide a lot of context behind the making of Wizards and where the series is going. Oh, and the other big news? The series apparently is not over. Guillermo del Toro shared on Friday when Wizards debuted that in 2021 we will be getting an animated movie on Netflix. I hope you guys enjoy this full interview with Marc and Colin. There were a lot of great questions that all of the bloggers asked. I'm going to put links below also to the breakdown of the Easter eggs, which you can find in episode 1 of Wizards. There's not a lot of spoilers. These are all going to be things you find in episode 1, and man, they are a lot of fun, especially if you're a Guillermo del Toro fan. Before we get to the interview, if you wouldn't mind giving a thumbs up and subscribing below to get access to my other videos. I make geeky cakes, I've got interviews, I've got trailer reactions, and it would be a lot of fun to hang around with you guys more often. But let's take a look now at the full interview with Marc Guggenheim, executive producers of the Tales of Arcadia trilogy, and Colin O'Donoghue, the voice of Douxie from Wizards.
Hello, how are you?
Tessa, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for taking the time today. I totally binged the entire series yesterday. I loved it. It was really great. But I really want to know, so Douxie was like a little bit of a reoccurring character in Troll Hunters and Three Below. But how did you feel about him being like the main character for this series?
I kind of known when I first started on Troll Hunters that he'd be quite a big character in Wizards, so that was always there. And I love, looking back now, I think that the introduction of Douxie was really, it was great the way that he was only in a couple of scenes here or there, or and people were just wondering who is this guy? What is he about? And then for Wizards, then you see the whole history of who he is and why he's there and all that kind of stuff. And I just think it was a really good way to introduce this character.
Yeah, I thought it was great too. I loved it.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing good, thank you. So I'd like to know if there's any aspect of your character that you can actually relate to.
That I can relate to? Douxie's big into the guitar, and that's kind of my my passion is the guitar, and I collect kind of stuff. So we're very similar like that. Obviously, I'm not like a 900-year-old wizard. It still looks like a teenager.
You look great.
Well, thanks very much. I definitely don't look like I'm 19, but he's I guess he's sort of determined, a little bit headstrong, passionate, empathetic, I guess. And I'd like to think that I'm probably all of those things.
Great, thank you.
Hey Colin, how are you? Thanks so much for talking to us. I'm wearing my Douxie inspired necklace today. And I really enjoyed the show. I'm curious, there at the end, and hopefully this isn't too big of a spoiler, but there's a scene between Douxie and Merlin where he tells you what a wizard you've become, and it's so interesting throughout the series and throughout centuries you see their relationship evolve. And I was just curious if you had any kind of perspective on what Merlin's relationship to him meant to Douxie and why it was so important for him to kind of get his acceptance and approval.
Yeah, I mean, it was when I was recording that stuff, it was actually quite emotional because like that, Merlin was a father figure to Douxie, and Douxie was constantly just trying to prove himself to Merlin, to show that he was a good wizard, and he kept getting fobbed off. And then, so for Merlin to turn around and say that to him and accept him as a powerful wizard and an equal is such a massive thing for Douxie, and quite an emotional scene and an emotional thing to play.
For sure. Yeah, that I thought was one of the most emotional scenes. I actually got tears in my eyes, so I really, really enjoyed that part. I did. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, hi guys, and hi Colin, hi Mark.
Hey, how you doing?
Great. So I was able to binge a lot of the episodes yesterday, and one thing that I noticed was, I think a lot of times when there's an animated series, the quality is not cool, not what you expect from something you would see on the big screen. Wizards looks like it could be a feature film, and I was just wondering about the process of the changes in the animation from the first series and how that's progressed.
It's interesting because we basically have been working with the same vendors, the same 3 animation houses that started with the very first episode, Troll Hunters. And I think you've seen, as I've seen, an incredible, evolution and growth in the animation. If you look back to the first episode, Troll Hunters, and now you look to the, first episode of Wizards, I think it's a massive, massive leap forward. And that's all, it's really all thanks to the designers and artists and animators that we've been working with. And the fact that we've really had the chance to work with many of them for the past 9 years has allowed us to, slowly iterate and evolve the look of all the shows.
It looks amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone works really, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. So that's really appreciated.
Hi, Colin. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Hey.
Hi, how are you?
I
Love the background.
Green screen, yeah, little background. So this is such a massive project and a finale to this trilogy. So I guess this is a question for both of you. What do you hope audiences will take away from this series after watching these last episodes?
Colin?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, I think for Douxie, for somebody who's been spending, I guess, 900 years or whatever it is to try and, win Merlin's sort of affirmation and acceptance and all that kind of stuff, I think, I hope that people will take, some sort of idea of hope from it, you know what I mean? And I think, for me, it was so much fun to get to play 2 different versions of Douxie in the show, which was amazing. And hopefully people will, I'm blown away by the animation and everything in it. So I think that it's an incredible show. So hopefully people will really love it.
I hope people love it too. I'm hoping that people are satisfied by the ending, but also surprised. I think one of the things that makes these shows special is we don't always, zig where most people would zag. And I think, the ending of Wizards is, I think it's very, very different from what people are expecting. I wish I could talk more about it, actually, but it would spoil not just the show, but some fun stuff that we'll have to talk about later.
Right. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Hi, Colin. Hi, Mark.
Hey.
So I actually watched this series with my family, and I have a 5 and an 8-year-old, and they were immersed the whole time, like, oh my gosh, it's so different. And Colin, this question is for you, and it's coming from my 8-year-old.
Okay.
And he basically wanted to know, what was your favorite scene to record during, this whole time?
I really liked the scene where, I think it's the scene where Douxie comes across old Douxie, and they sort of see each other for the first time. And any to be honest with you, any of the stuff that had like young Douxie, the sort of bumbling idiot, I absolutely love doing all of those. And I particularly love the line where I say, I think it was, bye me. So they were, any of those scenes with that young Douxie were great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, guys. Thanks for joining me today. So my question is for Mark, or either of you. You know, there in episode 5, there was a scene where Merlin kind of put mask on Claire and Douxie to, you know, silence them and everything. And usually, I mean, that would just be funny, whatever, but it struck a chord with me with everything going on in the world right now and the big debate on mask and things like that. And it just got me thinking, you know, with everything going on, if there was anything that you would add or change in the series, you know, what would it be? And if you would, or what would it be? Would you change anything? And if so, what would it be?
That's a good question. You know, nothing springs to mind, to be honest. Yeah, it's funny that the sort of, you know, muzzle gag in episode 5 was oddly prescient. But of course, you know, none of us could have seen this coming. No, I think, you know, it's funny. I'm not, as a writer, I don't typically look back on stuff and go, oh, I would have changed this for politics, or I would have changed this to reflect current events. I will say there's, you know, I haven't been involved with anything in my career that I haven't wanted a do-over in some way, shape, or form, but that's usually to address little technical things, like a line of dialogue I didn't feel like quite nailed, or, you know, in live action, you know, a production sequence that didn't have enough money going to it or something. But, you know, in terms of like trying to sort of chase the zeitgeist, I tend to sort of, you know, I tend not to try, because that way it could lie madness.
Thank you.
Hi, you guys.
Hi.
Hey.
So I am a big proponent of family-friendly content. And so first of all, I just wanted to thank you for making a show that is family-friendly and something I can watch with my kids. And it still has, you know, a little bit of an edge to it. One of my favorite things about this show were some of the words that you made up for, like, you know, like fuzz buckets and butt snack and things like that, so you can avoid the 4-letter words. So who came up with those? And do you have any non-4-letter words you like to say?
Yeah, great question, and thanks for asking, actually, because it gives me an opportunity to give a shout out to Chad Quant and Aaron Walke, who are not only the showrunners of Wizards, but they've been on the writing staff of Trollhunters. And during their time on Trollhunters, I kind of discovered, along with the Hageman brothers, that Chad and Aaron had this gift for coming up with names, like naming stuff. And not just, you know, to avoid, you know, standards and practices issues with language, but like they came up with the name of the Arcane Order, for example. They have a lot of talents, but that's one of them. And they come up with a lot of the names that you hear on the Trollhunters and Wizards.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for being here today. I have, Mark and Colin, I have a question for both of you. Mark, I wanted to know, what do you think sets Wizards apart or makes it different than Tales of Arcadia series? And did you always plan for Wizards to be the final chapter in the franchise? And Colin, I wanted to know, what draws you to your character and what would you like audience goers to learn from your character?
Colin, you want to take it first?
Okay, yeah. I'd always wanted to do an animation anyway, and when this came up, I was just thrilled to be a part of it. And you know, I think Douxie is so much fun to play in this season, in particular with the 2 different versions, with the older Douxie, who I really love playing, and it's just so much fun to sort of try and do a voice for animation. You know, you get to really ham it up, which I mean, I'm pretty hammy as an actor anyway, but I think it adds a little something to it. So what do I hope people take away from it? I hope that people just really enjoy it for the spectacle that it is. I mean, it really is fantastic and epic and visually stunning. So I just hope people really enjoy it and immerse themselves in it.
So as for your question to me, you know, it's funny. I have this philosophy that when you spin off a show, the spin-offs should always have their own identity and always, you know, be unique and distinct. Otherwise, you're just cloning the original show. With Wizards, we had that challenge, but we also had an additional challenge, which is it wasn't just a spin-off, it was also the conclusion of a trilogy. So Wizards kind of has to stand on its own feet as its own show, but at the same time, it has to feel like a satisfying end to a trilogy, which for my money is really sort of echoing the first chapter. I think, you know, to answer your question, like what sort of sets Wizards apart from the other two shows, I think, you know, for me, it kind of steals from and improves upon elements that Trollhunters and Three Below had. It sort of has the magic and the mythology of Trollhunters with the heightened humor of Three Below. At the same time, we're throwing time travel into the mix, and that's sort of like the new special ingredient that kind of makes this really, really different. To answer the second part of your question, did we always know Wizards would be the third and final series in the trilogy? Yes, we did. In fact, you know, we meet Douxie in the final season of Trollhunters, specifically knowing that he would be the main character of the third series in the trilogy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Sorry I missed you before.
Oh, it's fine. So I'm wondering, you know, some of the characters go back in time and they pretty much immediately mess up the entire timeline, like within an episode. And I'm curious, if you guys could go back in time, what historical event would you want to witness and possibly change and mess up?
Ooh. I'd like to go. I'd like to have seen Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock.
That's pretty good.
I wouldn't want to mess it up at all.
I would want to have. I would like to have something to do with preventing Donald Trump from getting elected in 2016.
Kind of love that answer.
I'm not shy about my politics.
Good. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
So Mark, I have a question for you. You said that this series is really about going backwards to go forward. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I kind of, in many ways, sort of mean it literally, because, you know, in two respects. The first is this idea that, you know, we're ending this trilogy. It's not just the end of Wizards, but the end of a 3-show arc. And we are literally going back in time to events that predate the first series. So we're going backwards to end the show. But there's also, I think, a slightly less literal meaning to what I was saying, which is that I favor trilogies that end not necessarily in a circle, but with a callback to the first chapter. You sort of like, you know, you've got the first chapter that sets the world and the universe and puts the characters and drama in motion. Then the second chapter is usually like a really big departure from the first chapter. And the third kind of brings it all full circle. And it sort of, you know, in musical terms, it sort of symphonically recapitulates the opening notes of the symphony. And I you know, feel like that's kind of how we've structured the Tales of Arcadia. So go back a little bit to Trollhunters in order to end the series.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mark, I have a question for you. Working with Guillermo del Toro, I know he likes to slip in some Easter eggs here and there into his works. And as I was watching the first episode, I think I found a couple. And I was curious if you could confirm or deny when Douxie is going into the GDT Arcane Bookstore, possibly the name of the bookstore, and maybe Guillermo del Toro's portrait above the fireplace. And if I can keep going, maybe a couple nods to Lovecraftian mentions and the Haunted Mansion. So anything else that fans can look for like that? Because that was so fun.
Well, thanks for noticing all that, first of all.
Great.
You know, and actually it's funny, like the GDT bookstore is itself an Easter egg, because if you go back to Three Below, the show that predates Wizards, you'll actually see the GDT bookstore in the background in Arcadia. So we were sort of very intentionally planting that seed, knowing that we'd then go to see the inside of the store. I'm trying to think if we'd worked out any other Easter eggs. Nothing springs to mind. You pretty much caught all the things in the bookstore. We will return to the bookstore later in the series, so you'll get a second chance to take a look.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I love spotting those little things. So thanks for pointing those out.
No, thank you so much.
Hi again. So I guess my question can apply to both of you. So what is the biggest challenge that you faced in your roles, respectively, as director and actor?
Colin?
For me, it was, I had never done an animation before, before I did the couple of scenes or whatever in Troll Hunters. And it was about, it's a completely different way of acting, really. It's, you know, normally you try to be as subtle as you can on camera and stuff, and you can't do that for animation. So that was a big learning for me, was to realize that I could be as big as I could possibly be, and that's where the animators then animate to the heightened whatever style of voice that you use. So it was great fun, and then when you get into it, it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's funny, like just to sort of, you know, follow on from that, one of the things that is so enjoyable about working on this trilogy is the fact that there's so many actors who had never done voice acting before. And that, like, to sort of watch, you know, you and the other actors go through that creative evolution is always very, very satisfying. You know, to answer your question, Eshin, you know, what's the most challenging thing? I find, honestly, it kind of depends on each episode, but overall, you know, the challenge sort of I always feel the most acutely is I never want to let Guillermo del Toro down. You know, he sets the bar really high, and you don't, it's not like you're afraid of him yelling at you. It's actually his passion is so infectious that you really don't, you know, it's like playing for a coach and you don't want to let the coach down.
Right, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Marc, I love that you have a background in comic books and that you were one of the authors on the graphic novel for Troll Hunters. So I'm just wondering, do we have more of that coming? Is there going to be a Wizards graphic novel on the way?
No, unfortunately not. We pitched it to Dark Horse, which is the company that you know, that DreamWorks has the publishing relationship with, and they had published our Troll Hunters graphic novels. And for reasons sort of known only to them, they passed. I was bummed because we really wanted to do a comic book related to Wizards. The whole writing staff was actually on board with the idea, and we had a whole bunch of cool ideas because there was a lot of story that we didn't get a chance to tell in 10 episodes, and characters we wanted to spend more time with. But you know, never say never. You know, it's there's you know, still chance, Dark Horse, you can change your mind anytime.
Fingers crossed that happens. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Marc.
Hey.
So I just wanted to ask, through the series, we kind of see the development of characters, and I felt like in Wizards there was like more in-depth just for relationships, specifically with Arthur and Morgana. And so I just kind of wanted to know if the storyline was kind of written with personal experiences that have happened, and kind of just how that developed.
Yeah, I think, thank you first of all for your kind words. You know, I know we spend a lot of time in the writer's room talking about just our own families and our own family dynamics. You know, the Arthur Morgana relationship is, you know, we all have family, and, you know, a lot of us have siblings, and, you know, so there are times when those relationships are kind of, you know, fractured and frayed. You know, the one thing that sort of really intrigued us was the idea that we wanted to kind of take the normal paradigm and flip it on its head, you know, so that Arthur is not entirely in the right, even though he's King Arthur and he wields Excalibur, and he's, you know, is seen in books and literature as you know, all-knowing and just a hero. we want to kind of, present him as kind of having a prejudice, against magic. And it's a prejudice that he comes by somewhat, honestly, in the sense that, he blames magic for, the death of his wife. But at the, sort of on the other side of the coin, we wanted to give Morgana a real point of view, so that she wasn't just a mustache twirling villain. That she, she makes, I think, a better argument than Arthur. And if we've done our job right, hopefully the audience spends the majority of Wizards kind of going, I kind of think Morgana, the bad guy, was in the right here.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Hey.
So Tanya, touched on the language, how it's a very kid friendly in the language, and listen, a fart joke in my house wins every single time. So I love the comedy in it. But you did mention, it gets dark and it has death in it, and even the message is kind of, the repercussions of our choices is kind of a powerful kind of message. So especially with the safe programming we have today, why did you think adding these elements into this was so important?
Well, it's funny. I'm old. I grew up on, Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And, I think I turned out okay. I wasn't, emotionally crippled, by Luke getting his hand chopped off. In fact, it's funny, the note that came back from Netflix when Morgana loses her hand is you can't show the hand getting chopped off. And I'm like, why not? We showed it on screen, back in 1980. But, I come from the viewpoint that, the kids can handle a lot more in terms of tone than we give them credit for. I think the intention always was to, produce a show, really a series of shows that was, for kids, but also for kids of all ages, people, from 5 to 500. And I think if you're gonna do that, you've got to have some emotional complexity. You've got to have some, tonal ambitions. I believe very strongly, and I think the reactions to Troll Hunters and Three Below sort of bear me out on this, is that kids can handle it, and enjoy it. They're not scared, they're not traumatized, that's. It seems to have worked out. Knock on wood.
I agree. Thank you.
Hi again.
Hey.
So when I was watching the series, one of my daughters was walking by and she said, "That sounds like Hook," and I'm like, "It is." And so my daughters are huge fans of Once Upon a Time. And I love that they can recognize your voice even in a different character. So was there anything that specifically that you did for Douxie when you were voicing him to change it from other recognizable characters, or how was that process for you?
Thanks very much, and you can tell your daughters I said thanks very much. I'm
I
glad
will.
For Douxie, I mean, I was kind of aware that I didn't want him to sound exactly like I did as Hook, because obviously I've got an Irish accent and Hook was English, but Hook's voice is a bit deeper. So with Douxie, because he was a bit younger too, I wanted him to have a slightly higher pitch, and he's kind of more kind of a Londoner sort of, it sounds like, it's kind of more like this, it sounds like this, so just to change it up a little bit. It was more, I just really didn't want him to sound exactly like I did as Captain Hook. So it's always funny because a lot of people don't realize that I'm actually Irish. Do you know what I mean? Because
yeah.
I played English so many times, but it was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi again. So I've got two questions. So I wanted to know, both of you, what were your favorite episodes and why? And then Colin, I want to know, how did that sourdough bread turn out? And did you really make it?
I did make the sourdough bread, and I'm still making it. It turned out great. So, and I'm using it for sourdough pizza bases as well. But
Fantastic.
My favorite episode, I think it's so hard to pick because they're all so good. I really, I was blown away by the first episode. It just really, my wife and I've got 2 kids. My son is 7 and my daughter's 3. And we all watched it together, and we all were just absolutely blown away by the scale of it, just how epic it is, and just how beautiful it looks. So I think the first episode I would say is probably, favorite is the wrong term, but it definitely had a huge impact on me.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I love that first episode. It's funny. I remember us screening the first animatic for it with Guillermo, and we were all just blown away. And that was just when it was in storyboards. So, you can. I just have really enjoyed watching the evolution of that particular episode. But the 10th episode, the final episode of the series, also has a special place in my heart because of where we're able to get to emotionally. And I don't want to sort of spoil the ending, but there's certainly a scene between Douxie and Merlin that really tugs at your heartstrings. And anything that kind of can move me that way is always, among my favorite, episodes.
I was also glad the first episode because it meant that I was still in it. I knew that Douxie was still in it. He was still a good character. So
that's awesome. Thank you.
Hi again.
Hello. Again.
So Colin, we already talked a little bit about Douxie's arc and how he's this was an incredible season for him. I absolutely loved watching him learn about friendship and all that great stuff and actually becoming a really great wizard and having confidence in himself. But so he's gotten more into wizardry. He's confident in himself with all his spells. So if you could have any of his spells, which one would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good one. I think I would like I like the one where he sort of catches he reins in the shadow method, the sort of almost like a whip. I could do with that to wrangle up my kids pretty much whenever we need to go somewhere. So I'll probably go with that one.
That's a fun one. I think if I could have one, I would do that never-ending hallway thing to just wear my kids out, just let them run it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. So Colin, I'd love to know why it was important for you to be a part of this project.
I mean, when I first found out about it, heard about it for Troll Hunters, I'd always wanted to do voice for an animation. It was like a childhood sort of dream. I was actually going to go to study animation. I'd been accepted in university and decided to become an actor instead. So I was.
Thank you for that.
No, thanks. I was thrilled to get the opportunity, and then Guillermo del Toro. It's hard to not be excited by anything that he's involved with as well. And I think, and Mark, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain that we sort of knew when I was coming on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The idea that Wizards would be a big thing for Douxie. So that was the fun of knowing that, in Troll Hunters, I might be in 2 or 3 scenes, I think it is, and then 3 below, something similar, but teasing the character out that way. I love the idea of that, knowing that this was going to be a bigger season for him.
Thank you.
Hey, Colin, I have a question for you. So working with fantasy series with obviously Wizards and Once Upon a Time, I'm curious, they both have such dedicated fan bases, and coming into Wizards, did you know anything about the fan base, and did you have like a warm reception joining the show? And is fantasy a genre that you like to be participating in?
I mean, fantasy is a genre that I've been participating in for nearly 10 years now. So whether I want to be or not, it's there. No, I love fantasy. I knew the original first season of Trollhunters, so I knew about that, but I didn't know that the fan base was as rabid as it is, and like similar to that, the Once Upon a Time fans are, incredibly rabid. So I was kind of half okay with it because it was so crazy on Once Upon a Time with the fans in a good way, because that's what you want. You want people to really be passionate about your show or whatever. So yeah, it was kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see also because Douxie was only such a smaller role in the other ones, and it was amazing to see, like, on my Twitter and stuff like that, people sort of going, why only doing like a couple of scenes? That's crazy. There's something going on. There's something, and obviously you can't say anything. You know what I mean? We couldn't say anything, but it was sort of, and also it was great that the character had an impact for such a small amount of screen time. In the first in like the Trollhunters and stuff like that. So yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. They're in for a treat this season then, and get to see more about your character.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi again. Okay, so Colin, I kind of wanted to talk about fans as well. I'm wondering which fans are the craziest? The Once Upon a Time, the Tales of Arcadia, or something else?
Or something else? I'll probably have to say or something else, because I don't want people. Crazy is the wrong term. I think it's passionate more, I would say. And I don't know. I've yet to see now for Wizards, because, like I said, Douxie was only such a small character. I think that people didn't it didn't register so much with the fans. But maybe after Wizards, it might be a bit more. They might be a bit more vocal to me about things.
Thank you.
Hello, it's Ishan again.
Hello.
So I have a question for Colin this time. So what was a typical day shooting the series? Any fun stories?
Oh, working on this? Well, it's a funny one, because I live in Ireland, so I pretty much recorded most of my stuff here, miles and miles, thousands of miles away from anybody else involved in the project. And it's you're kind of in the booth on your own, sort of Skyping with people. But I weirdly, I really, really enjoyed it, because you just sort of you get to sort of go off in your own mind, and you're not worried about people really sort of seeing you and watching you, whatever, performance wise. So it was a lot of fun, but it's kind of weird being so far away from where everybody was, and we'd have to try and arrange times that would suit where it wouldn't be the middle of the night for me, and it'd be, early morning for those guys in LA and whatever. But yeah, that was kind of it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Colin. My question is for you, and I was just curious because I know you're a dad. And so I was just curious, because you are recording this stuff at home and everything, if you have seen, the first two series with your kids, and kind of like, what do they think of Dad playing Douxie, and just being this character that's, loved by so many?
Well, yeah, my kids are quite young, and I was saying earlier on when I played the first episode of Wizards for them, they, I don't think that they kind of go, oh, yeah, that's you, Dad. But then they're sucked into the whole show, and they forget about it. So they kind of, but they loved it. And, they're 7 and 3. And I think it's fun to do something where that I can watch it with the kids. I mean, Once Upon a Time kind of was like that, but it was more difficult watching something like that where I had to kiss somebody else and have your son, when he was 4, say, "That's not mommy."
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to have an animation to watch with them.
Awesome, thank you.
Hello once again. So I was going to ask Colin, well, Douxie is a very interesting character. I mean, he's 900 years old, right? But he's a teenager, and he acts like a teenager. I mean, well, I'm in my 40s, and you would think I still act like a kid, but I would just hope by 900 years old, I would have matured a little bit. But I just want to know how you even approach a character, to play a character like that, or prepare.
I mean, I had a bit of practice because Captain Hook was similar. He was sort of 700 years old in once upon a time. So I guess I'd had practice. He, interestingly about that is because he is a teenager, essentially, he acts like one. I really wanted, when I played past Douxie, for him to seem a lot younger. I wanted him to seem a lot more naive in vocally. So, and I think it comes across. So you can kind of half hear a little bit more maturity in regular Douxie. But yeah, no, I don't know. You just have to imagine what it must be like to be a 900-year-old teenager. It'd be horrible.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you.
So my question is, even though it was animation, like I was in love with all of the, I don't even know what to call it, the costuming of the characters. And so I want to know if there's going to be Wizards merchandise or something, because Halloween is my favorite holiday. And so I always dress up in October, like every day. And some of those costuming, like I want to recreate.
I think you've asked a question that's above both of our pay grades. I know there's they had a costume for Jim's armor. I don't think they made it for adults. I think it was just sort of kid-sized costumes. But I don't know of any Wizards related merch. But that.
Mark, can you do something about that?
History has shown that I can't. History has proven me very incapable of making these things happen. But it's definitely not for lack of trying, or certainly not for lack of wanting to.
All right. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
So I wanted to know, regarding the shows, and Colin, when you were filming them or when you were voicing them at home, did the kids ever run in and want to help you voice?
No, I was lucky. We got everything recorded in a professional studio before all this COVID stuff kicked in. So I haven't had to. I've had to do ADR for my new show here, and so that's a very specific thing where we say, right, kids, you're not allowed in this part of the house. Stay away. I have to do it because the mic picks up anything. But luckily, we got everything done for Wizards before the lockdown kicked in.
Wonderful, thank you.
Hi again. This is a little spoilery, but so we end in a cliffhanger, like a real, I'm very angry, this can't be the end cliffhanger. Please tell me this can't be the end, because it's a cliffhanger that I'm not going to say, but there's got to be more, right?
The way I like to answer this is, if I were to tell you, it would be the end of me. DreamWorks and Netflix, they have a team of paid assassins on their payroll, and they're very good shots. But you will not have to wait long to get an answer to your question.
Okay, yay, thank you.
So I pretty much binge watched this season in a day and a half or so. And as I was watching episode after episode, it got to be like halfway through the season, and each episode was like finale worthy. There were tons of battles and character meetups and everything going on. And I would keep checking the episode list because I was like, is this the finale? Is this the finale? Did you guys know that this season was going to be this big? Or did as you were writing, did you just keep adding in scenes that just got bigger and bigger?
I think we really knew from the outset, mainly because we knew we only had 10 episodes, and we had a sense of how much story we had to tell, and it was more than 10 episodes worth. So one of the biggest challenges was figuring out how to tell all the story that we wanted to tell in the screen time we had. And the way I sort of describe it is it's kind of like when you take a car and you put in one of those compactors, you end up with something that's a lot smaller than a car, but it still weighs as much as the original car. It didn't get any lighter. That's sort of how I feel about the narrative here. It's like we kind of took 20 episodes worth of story and compacted it into 10, so it feels like it's got the weight of 20 episodes.
For sure. Yeah, it was a really fun, ending to the trilogy. But man, you guys just packed so much in. It was so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for both of you, I'm wondering, did everything stay pretty close to the script, or was there any room for improvisation as you went along in production?
Colin?
I think it was pretty much to the script. If I remember rightly, I don't think there was much room for, no, I don't think there was. Was there? There might have been a couple of phrases here or there that were improvised on the day, but not many, I wouldn't think. No, it was pretty much to the script.
Yeah, I would say generally speaking on the shows, there are some actors who have done more improv than others, like Jack Kenny and JB Smoove in Three Below, for example. But generally speaking, it's not that there's no room for improv. I don't think we would, complain if anyone wanted to do it. But generally speaking, yeah, we just, for the most part, the shows tend to stick to the script.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
So my question is for Marc. So help me understand how you choose a film to executive produce. So what do you look for in a script or a story, and why did you decide to be involved with Wizards?
Ooh, good question. That's a really good question. For me, it usually is a mix of the people involved and just whether or not the project sort of speaks to me. Like in the case of, the Trollhunter franchise, I really wanted to work with Guillermo del Toro. But the material also really spoke to me. My sort of barometer is just like, if something sort of comes my way, I try to sort of just, live with it for a few days. And I find that if my brain is sort of, as my mind is wandering, like if I'm in the car back when we used to do that and, or in the shower or something, if my mind sort of wanders to the project and ideas start to come, that is usually how I know it's the right thing for me. That's, this was such a vibrant, huge world that Guillermo created that it was like, it felt like being in a playground.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi again. So Marc, this question is for you. In this series, we have a couple of new characters, such as Archie and Callista and everything. And so I was kind of wondering, when you guys kind of casted like Alfred Molina and, James Faulkner, were you guys kind of making these characters with them in mind already? Or was this something that, after the character was developed, you were like, we would like to cast, these people to voice these characters?
Over the life of the trilogy, both have been true. In the case of Alfred, I know that Archie wasn't, sort of created with him in mind, but he was our first choice to voice the character. And every time, someone gets cast, you go through a process of sort of adapting the voice of the character to the voice of the actor. We've been very, very fortunate that, with maybe like one or two exceptions, over the life of the trilogy, all the actors that we've cast were our first choices. And in some cases, the characters were sort of created with an actor in mind. In other cases, it was like, okay, we created this character. Now let's come up with a list of actors. But it's always those two things are always, they're either, overlapping or right next to each other.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So touching on a little of Nicole's question, she mentioned Callista, and it was a very, girl power character, right? And you had Beatrice, who is like a strong female, actress. So I just wanted you to touch on that, bringing these strong female characters into this series.
It's funny. It's something we've tried to do with all the shows. In Trollhunters, we obviously have Claire. In Three Below, Aja. I think in the case of Callista, we were actually trying to introduce a strong female character, but in a way that was different from Aja and Claire. I think Aja and Claire, Claire sort of has sort of the traditional hero's journey, sort of evolving with her powers and evolving with her responsibilities, becoming a troll hunter. Aja is someone who comes from royalty. She already sort of arrives on screen very commanding, very sort of take charge. With Callista, we wanted someone who didn't look like Aja or Claire. Wanted someone a little heftier, little bigger boned, as it were, but also someone who had been underestimated her entire life, who actually had much greater things in store for her than her initial appearance or past history. Thank you.
So one of my favorite quotes in this series is, "A wizard does not make mistakes, he makes unexpected possibilities." In both of your careers, what are some unexpected possibilities that you've made?
I mean, it's difficult as an actor to answer that, because you saw at the at the whim of directors or casting directors. Sometimes you think you're appropriate for something, and then you turn around and you're not. And then other times, you have to make a decision whether or not to do it. But I mean, I feel lucky to have done any of the work that I've done, like Once Upon a Time or this or the next show I have coming out, and just feel really blessed to have been a part of all of them, and such a different variety of shows, but I don't know if that's down to my choices or if it's just a bit of luck, to be honest.
It's funny, my first job in the entertainment industry was working on a show called The Practice, and it was created by David Kelly, who created Ally McBeal and Big Little Lies, and I was a huge David Kelly fan, and LA Law was like this seminal show, and this was like my dream gig, and it was every, it more than everything I ever wanted to do as a writer. And at the end of my first year on the show, I was given an offer to go onto Law and Order. And the offer was very enticing because it was an opportunity to write and produce more than I was able to do on The Practice, just because of the way David runs his shows. And if you had told me I would get my dream gig and then a year in I would quit, I would have thought you were completely insane, and talk about unexpected. But I did leave The Practice. I did join Law and Order, and that's where I met my wife. So it created this incredible unexpected possibility, and 2 kids. So that's probably my most unexpected possibility type of story.
Oh, I love both of those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. So I wanted to know, I don't know if you can discuss this or not, what next projects you have both in the pipeline. And Colin, I'm going to circle back really quickly regarding your bread making skills. Will you putting the recipe and how to on Instagram so we can try to make it at home as well?
I'll have to see. Yeah, I'll put it up there. Put a photograph, but it's very tasty. It's very nice.
Perfect.
The question was what's in the pipeline next? It's
Yes.
funny. There's a bunch of things I'm working on that I can't talk about. In terms of what I can, I'm working on 3 comic book adaptations, ironically, for features. One is Jackpot for Sony. She's a Spider-Man character that I actually co-created back when I was writing Spider-Man for Marvel. The second is a movie called Prophet, and that's a character from the creator of Deadpool. And the third is based on it exists as an anime and a manga comic called Gantz. And ironically, I became a fan of Gantz when I was working on Three Below. When Guillermo and I were developing that show, he said, you have to check out this anime called Gantz. And I totally loved it. And the idea that, a few years later, I'm adapting it as a movie is crazy to me. It's just one of those funny, things, the way life works out.
Thank you. Yes.
I've a show coming out on Disney Plus called The Right Stuff. So it's based on the Tom Wolfe book about the Mercury 7 astronauts and the beginnings of NASA. So I play Gordo Cooper, who was the last of the Mercury 7 astronauts to go up. So that's it's sometime in the fall. It's coming out.
Thank you.